they felt similarly appropriate was done for Harry Siegel earlier this year in the honor of his 80th birthday. And they suggested that Tony was also approaching his 80th year and was in Denver. Probably wouldn't be traveling too far if he was down in Houston or whatever. And what did I think of the idea? Well, the first week I think I just ignored it. Hoped Jerry would go away. But Jerry is a very persistent person. Very persistent. So anyways, at the heart of it, we knew it was an excellent idea. It was just a matter of how to structure it logistically with so many events happening at the time of the SCG. But we put together, basically with the enormous help of cooperation. Louise could have told us to get lost, but she said, it's a great idea, which I think really we have to thank her for that. Thank you, Louise.
You're a hero.
It's trying to encapsulate in the short time that we have the depth and breadth of the career of the person who you've come here to honor. It is truly staggering. I have looked at Tony's career and Tony's accomplishments through a project that I've been involved with for about 5 years with Dave Fountain, looking at the history of airborne EM. Just one aspect of it, the input system which he developed in the late 1950s, created enormous wealth for many, many countries, many individuals. I think the list of deposits is something over, just for the input system alone, let alone its precursors, was well over 20 billions of dollars. Dave, he knows. 25. Richard Smith's reading from the list. On the polls around here is sort of some info sheets about some of the things that Tony was involved with. He's won a number of awards. 2 I've got citations for on these posts. You'll find it basically the same material as in all 4, but I just got so enthusiastic I made multiple copies. But we've got information about input, the system being used in Sweden in the early, I think it was 1966. He looked a bit like Bruce Willis to me, although it sort of is a fuzzy picture at that time. On the U.S. patent website, I visited that to get some information, because I know Tony was unique, and that he loved to patent things as much as he liked to invent them. And unfortunately, with the way it's set up, you can only search under names from 1976 on. But just with that category, I was able to pull up 26 patents. And the most recent one, I believe, was August of this year. So not only prolific, but still going strong. And at the end, we're going to have a number of people talk briefly about their experiences with Tony. The Barringer alumni, I guess, as we started to call him as a pet term. And then Tony's going to tell us a bit about his current work. But what I'll do is I'm going to read from a piece from his Kaufman Award given by the SCG. Harry Siegel was the nominee for this. And this is just some facts, but it lays a bit of the framework for this man's incredible career. Tony took his BSc and PhD in economic geology. That's right, he's a geologist. The latter in 1954, both at Imperial College in London. Tony is, however, not your typical economical geologist. He immigrated to Canada in 1954 and spent only 2.5 years as an exploration geologist with Selco before conceiving the principles of the input airborne electromagnetic system and persuading Selco to fund its development. In 1961, he formed Barringer Research Limited, including much of the airborne and technological services division of Selco, with himself as president and the major shareholder was his current position. Tony is a man of boundless energy and enthusiasm, that we know. He developed new concepts and processes. He inspired inventors, often ultra-conservative mining companies, to supply the funds necessary to put these concepts into practice. He infects his own employees with his enthusiasm and his devotion to his research projects. Many of these employees have gone on to make their mark in the scientific research of other organizations. One thing we were asking ourselves just earlier, how many Barringer alumni are in the room tonight? Could you have a show of hands of people that feel they'd be part of that? There you go.
Still alive.
Still alive, still exactly. That's good news. Anyways, present time, this was written some time ago. You've lived in Golden for Genesee for over 20 years. And still active, as we know, and we'll hear a little bit later on this evening. What we're going to do is we're going to have invite some people who were familiar with, directly familiar with Tony's career, former Barringer employees, to provide a few anecdotes. I had three. I wasn't part of the Barringer alumni, but one of the things I have tried to get to Tony to do, and he hasn't really been very cooperative, because he's not a past-looking person. He looks forward, much to, I'm sure, many people's annoyance, and it certainly was mine trying to get background information about the airborne EM story. But he described to me one Boxing Day in Canada, I believe it was in 1957, where there was some particular thorny problem about a stabilization of the receiver for the new input system. And he described rushing downstairs Boxing Day morning with the idea in his head as to how this problem was to be solved. And this event would have happened 45 years after the fact. But it was crystal clear in his mind, and it certainly impressed me with how enthusiastic he was about his creations. His sense of humor came out in a comment he made about testing a system at the Mount Hope Airport at Hamilton, Ontario. He was working away at the system one Sunday when somehow some of the reporters for the local Hamilton Gazette or whatever came out and asked what he was doing. And he explained he worked for the Lord's Day Society, and this was a fornication detection device. Sense of humor. My last anecdote was inspired about 2 weeks ago as I passed through the Denver airport. And I guess I had the more than normal searching that had to be done, and I was trying to keep my sense of humor in the whole process. I looked down, and the woman who had just finished the invasive probes that they do, and there was sitting a Barringer research sniffer of some sort. I didn't know what it was, but it was sitting there, and I said, "That man who invented that lives here." And he says, "He must be a rich man." And I said, "Yes, he is." We'll first invite John Lovell to give us a few words. John.
1974.